Welcome to After Africa, today's episode on Voice of Africa. I remain your host. My name is Michael. Today with me, I've got a special guest, Mr. TJ, and of course, our guest speaker, Mr. Frank. Today we'll be talking about stereotypes, and we know stereotypes are cognitive structures that contains the perceiver's knowledge, beliefs, and expectation about human groups. On today's episode, we'll be talking about African American stereotypes and culture on African youth. So, Mr. Frank, let's get on today's episode. What are your takes? What are your opinion on the stereotypical culture, the stereotypical life in African, how it affects the African youth today?
All right. Thank you, Mike, for having me on your show once again. Good evening or good morning, dear viewers all around the world. Stereotype about African American stereotype on youth African, or at least you're talking about a family, because African American are also African. You know, they were our brothers forcefully taken to US. First of all, I will start by giving a brief definition of what is meant by stereotype. Stereotype is a mistaken idea or a belief many people have about a thing or a group of person, and that's based upon how they look or from the outside. And of course, we cannot judge people only by their look. We have to know them because what someone shows up is it can be the 1% of the really person he is. So we cannot just judge people by stereotype. Coming back from a question like African American stereotype on youth African, actually the thing I will put this on Hollywood, social media, that's where we must got inspired with what goes around the world. So young African, they have a dream. America's a dream country. There is something called American dream. Everybody want to be there. Everybody want to have that kind of life, and everybody think he can become somebody in America. And for us African, when we look our fellow brother, the way they are doing, especially those in show business, hip hop, R&B, we just try to act like them. What you think or the way you think is almost 100% of what we become. Like, I mean, if you have an idea and if you trust that idea, that idea may come true. So us African, our fellow African brothers, they look up on African American about show, like I say, showbiz, Hollywood, and they try to act like them. Of course, sometimes not good. They wear chains and do stuff. I may say it's not good at all, but that's the I cannot judge, and I cannot say that it's bad or it's good, but it's what people want us to see. Not all African American are artists or hip hop rapper or playing film. No, you have some great American like who are who work at the Senate, who are great businessmen. So what we see is not really. I cannot, from what I see on Hollywood and TV, I cannot just give a global judgment. No, I have to go case by case. And during the show, I think we I will elaborate more with that and give some example.
All right, thank you, Mr. Frank. Mr. Frank here is talking about the emulation, how the African youth are tending to emulate, the hip hop, the world, the Hollywood, the hip hop today. So there, I'll come to you, Mr. TJ. What are your takes on the issue of stereotypes of the young African American on the African youth today?
Well, what I can say about stereotype is I would say that stereotype actually what we capture, what we draw from a group or a set of people as the characteristic that actually define them I think it's actually it depends on, you know, advertisement. So I would, you know, we can have different definitions of stereotype about whatever, but I would say that a stereotype is the most advertised, the most publicized characteristic, all right, of a people, a group of people. So what they put out there, what we see, the only how we can access the exposure, all right, which we have about a group of people. Again, this is what this exposure actually finally settles in our mind, and this is how we tend to look at these people. That is it. But I would say that often it's not true. For example, look at, you know, the hip hop community. You know, African Americans are not all about hip hop.
Exactly.
All right, hip hop is an industry, like music is an industry in itself, so you cannot judge a people based on, you know, what they display on screen, the kind of clothes they wear, you know, their dressing style, their preferences. At least I would say that those people have their own personal lives. All right, and in their private lives, they might not be living the same. Like, they might not have the same attitude, or they might not be displaying or portraying themselves the way they portray in the studio, on screen. All right, but that's the stereotype, and it's bad because, you know, the youth and the audience, some people, you know, are influenced by it. They copy it.
Yeah, that's besides the point.
Yeah.
People have been influenced by this character that you're trying to explain right now. You're trying to say that this artist, for example, in the hip hop world, and they are actually not living the life that they try to portray.
Yeah, that's what they portray on
but
screen.
but it's influencing, it's affecting the young African youth, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, definitely. You see, it affects our choices of dressing. I mean, that one is crystal clear. And it also affects, you know, other cultures, like, you know, other negative cultures. So stereotype, in my opinion, really can only be a bad thing. Among African Americans, what has been publicized about them, what we constantly see, what we can access, like the only place we can access life in other worlds, maybe on TV, on the internet, on the news, in other articles, all these sources through which we can access lives, we can get information about, you know, other people, about, you know, African Americans. What we see there is what we take. All right, and yeah, I can say it's affecting the youth. It's crystal clear. We can see it in the way of dressing, but positively as well. We can see others, you know, group of guys. I can say in my, you know, little district, in my little sub town back home, I know a lot of guys. You know, some of them I'm related to. Yeah, they have, you know, been inspired by this. Speaking of music, they've been inspired by this, and now I think we can call them a wannabe, but they are on the way. Yeah. So in a way, it can inspire negatively, but also positively. Yeah.
That's besides the point. In a way, it can inspire negatively, and it also can inspire positively. But right now, we want to talk about the negative impact. The attribute, the negative impact it has really caused on the younger generations today in terms of wanting to be like wannabes, like this artist today.
Thank you, Michael. Actually, I'm a positivist, so I don't like too much to talk about negativity.
If we don't talk about the negative,
no, I'm just a point because I will give you an answer, but
we have
what
to
I
talk about the negatives,
Exactly.
to be able to point out, you know, to single out positive.
Yeah.
I think,
I love being positive only. You know, of course, negativity is it, but I just have to be positive. Coming to negativity about young African, first of all, I will say it depends of the media that they want to watch. This depends on what you need. If you want to be an artist, of course, you can watch some TV channel based on hip hop, on rap. Yeah, that's fun for you. If this is really what you really want to be, if is it the place, the field where you are planning to build your career, that's okay. But on the point of positivity, I will take other stereotypes. We have like some great African American businessmen, politicians. Yeah, those people, you can learn from them. Like Barack Obama, you have this guy, the CEO of American Express. There's some people that it's very rare to see them on TV, but when you try to check about their life, you can get inspired how to become a great entrepreneur, how to become a great person in the society. Not only like life when we used to say life is just a balance, right? Yeah. And if you choose to see only the bad, of course you'll be going to that direction. But if you choose to only see what's good around you, you focus on that and you become great, or you become a nice person in the society. And coming back to the definition of stereotype, stereotype is not only what it's not more often the reality. So seeing people trying to judge in people, or trying to focus your life through stereotype, no, I think that's not a great way to do. Like you have to when you see something, you have to ask yourself, why this person is doing like this? Why not doing in other way, right? After asking yourself those questions, you try to find out. You may come to the reason that the person using this platform, she's acting this way just because of in a special moment or a special case. Like artists, the way Chris Migos, the way they dress, actually, I may be sure that it's not the same way in the real society they dress. They just use those dress for a special moment and for a special case. So if somebody just look at that and say, "Oh, this is what I want to become," man, I think it's going on the wrong way.
I think the form of dressing of talking about the Migos, the way they're dressed, and I think that's a personal thing. That's a personal thing for them, how they want to be how they want to be seen
actually,
in videos.
In videos.
But basically, how people tend to portray, like it's been a widely spread, talked about issues that the younger African American wants to be seen, dressing in a sort of way.
And that's not true. We all know that it's not really true. Let's about Migos. I've seen some video of Migos in their real life. The way they do look, it look great. It's just always with a chain or those stuff. No, he used that for a special momentum. It's for a special case for his show. But us people who are watching through TV, most of the time they don't think that it is only for the stage or all those stuff. No, they have to think that way. Is it like this in the real life? Why not trying to get inspired by something that you only see on TV? Why not taking more about it? You have some people that you can get like you have a good stereotype and a bad. As a positivist, I like seeing other kind of stereotype, like I say, people who are doing great. Like let's talk about LeBron James example. That's somebody you can look at. You can look up of like LeBron James is a person. He inspires people. Like he's a baller. He plays basketball, but in the real life, he's an amazing person. So that's the kind of people. That's the kind of people you can focus on them. Even when I play basketball, let's say, you can see through LeBron because that's what he's doing for his life and he's doing great and doing in the right way.
Let's not misunderstand a lifestyle with stereotype. Let's not mistake that fact.
Actually,
that's a lifestyle. That's his lifestyle.
It's true lifestyle that people get stereotyped. You have to agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. But we're talking about this. the point you're going to, you're talking about elite African Americans in the industry, in the entertainment industry today, how they are, the way of dressing, the way of what they do within and outside the when they're seen on TV. Basically, you're talking about their lifestyle, but we're talking about how this young Africans, the younger generations, how they, try to emulate the wrongs.
They actually we are almost seeing the same thing, because young African they try to copy what they see on TV, and what they see on TV is just it's like a lifestyle, and that's where people get to type it. If you show me something, it's true what you are showing me that I can tell you.
Are you in support of a 5-year-old child using a very unpleasant grammar, like using the F word, and just because the little kid heard this from the media, from entertainment, from the music, whatsoever, where she saw it, but that person, that artist who she got that idea of what grammar to use, doesn't live the same lifestyle to what he is trying to portray outside.
Exactly. They now we come back for a 5-year-old kid who trying to use an F word because he see on video on TV. Then now he has a parent, right? If your parent should be focused on education, but for young African on his 20s, and if he start doing the same thing, repeating the same thing, of course, I mean that's really bad for him and for people, for a career. I may say like that, because he has to use his sense. You have to use you just don't need to. Everything you see on TV is not always right. It's just about Africa. When people try to portray Africa on TV, it's really quite different from the reality. When you see Nigeria, that people major shows on air, it's not the same Nigeria that where you go and you can see the great place. About Lagos, when you see maybe Cameroon shown on TV, it's not the Cameroon. Sometimes you cannot say, is it the Cameroon where I have been, or is it the same place? No, it's not. It's not.
Really?
So through those kind of things, if a person cannot be open-minded, like to say to ask other questions, like what I'm seeing, what's the idea behind? Why not showing other? Is it like this? So the stereotype is only what you see, and if you try to believe it, it will affect your way to think, and that's
all right. Thanks, Mr. Frank. Okay, Mr. TJ. We want to talk about the negative impact of stereotype, how it's been, that's been portrayed in today's media and everything. How has it been affected? How have Africans been affected by this?
Because of given all these exposures which we have, we see how those entities in show business, the stars, living the celebrity lifestyle, buying fancy cars, wearing gold chains, gold rings, they call them ice. It actually has a negative effect on the African youth in a way, and I'm going to explain. It has actually left many African youths. I don't know if it's just Africa, but yeah, speaking from our standpoint, it has affected most African youths in a way as to making them being dreamers rather than actually working hard for something. All right, so you would see people, young Africans, boys and girls, posting on social media. They're actually not living a reality, but living, trying to put up or advertise them virtual selves. You get it?
Yes.
An example, I wouldn't tell you. Turn on your Facebook. All the guys you're gonna see on Facebook, the pictures, the posts. If the post of somebody would be different. You would look at them and you would understand that this is not the real person, and you would understand what's behind all this. So we don't get to think really about the force behind what we see in those posts. You know, fellow brothers and sisters post on Facebook, Instagram, and so on. This is a real revelation of, you know, the impact stereotype is having on African youths, you know, brothers and sisters. They want to show up. They want to, you know, it has created the sort of virtual person,
yeah,
different
yeah.
from what you really are, and
So living a fake life.
living a fake life. And it has also, you know, by extension, it makes us desperate. We don't really want to sit down and plan on how to be prosperous, but we just want to, you know, seize the slightest opportunity to show ourselves as successful, you know, rather than being successful.
It's the 21st century.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
All right, thank you. That will bring us back. I want us to talk about stereotypes versus reality right now. What are the balance with stereotypes? What people, you know, the misconception about what people really think and what's the reality.
Thank you, Mike. Here to give a hit percentage. I won't go that way because I don't really know about the hit percentage, but I will just try to speak about some example that I really know. I will talk about African country, then we try to see the percentage. In some TV channel and some media, Africa is stereotyped as in no way place only where guns speak more than people. A place where people are more familiar with animals than with civilization. A place where there's no food. A place where we don't know what beauty is. But coming back to the reality, you completely see the opposite. Africa is a beautiful place. Africa is a place to be. Africa is a place about tourism and all those stuff. So stereotype, as I used to define, is something. Is mostly it can be something a mistaken idea or belief. But
That's what we talk about misconceptions.
Exactly. But trying to judge somebody through a stereotype is also not good, because stereotype is most of the time it can be 10% of the reality of somebody. So it show only 10% of who he is through stereotype, and the 90% is hiding. So trying to I will say reality is more hidden inside people than what they show, and that's why I say you don't have to judge people through appearance. You have to know them, and the way belief is more insight than stereotype.
Like how people say, don't judge the taste of the palm wine by just looking at the back.
At the back, exactly.
And don't judge the book. The book
to the cover.
Yeah, exactly.
Taste the palm wine. Taste the content. Don't look at the container and then judge what.
I want your opinion on stereotype versus reality. What you think?
Yeah. First, I want to make this remark. You know, the little town of Boya is, you know, the best place I would say I've ever lived in. And so I would say that my own paradise on earth, which I've experienced, has been Boya. All right, in Cameroon. I love that country.
It's a place in Cameroon.
Yes, it's a town. All right, the mountain city of Cameroon. So there you have everything. The town is clean. Southwest in general, the region is clean, super clean. We have clean water. I haven't yet, I've not yet had the chance to drink the kind of water I drink back home. All right, we drink clean water. We have, clean streets. The neighborhoods are not, we don't have paved roads right into the neighborhoods, yet they are super clean. We're talking about like dirt, bare ground, all right, but they are clean. The people are woke. They understand the importance of hygiene. There is hygiene, and it has been a long, tradition in the region, in that town. But the way Africa, probably Cameroon, would be shown on TV, for example, or say CNN, I bet you it will be different. You get it? So Africa is portrayed as that dirty continent. All right. If any documentary is being shot, about any country, Namibia, Nigeria, Cameroon, Congo, Ghana,
yeah.
right? Places that will be flashed are dumps.
Exactly.
You find dumps everywhere.
Yeah.
In every country you have dumps. And we have tramps going around dumps. And you would find, such images, incorporated into documentaries. It is just false. Africa is not dirty as it is shown
On TV, yeah.
It is not the continent of sickness as it is shown on TV.
Yeah.
I can say that the only two sicknesses, like the only two diseases I was familiar with,
It was
malaria and
Ebola.
typhoid.
Ah, okay.
We don't know anymore. I've never been to a dentist, for example. And I know many people who haven't been to a dentist. You get it? This is the kind of Africa which is being portrayed. This is the kind of Africa which I see, which I've come across in one book. I don't want to mention the name, but in one book, it's an English textbook for learners of the English language, and it's there. It's one of the articles, an article which I had to read. We have to, treat. Actually talks about, it's about this negativity about Africa, which I, as a child, used to hear about Africa some time ago, but it is being spoken there as though it's, something that's contemporary. That's it. It is not the best. It is prejudice on display. It is prejudice publicized. Yeah. So I would say that it's not a good thing. It's not good. It's not good for Africans, and stereotype is also it can also affect. Well, it's not. It's a global issue. It's a global problem. All right. It's something that exists in every community. In every community has their own stereotype. That's it. So it's not good. It's not good.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. TJ. Mr. TJ says Boya is a town of paradise.
Yeah, the place to be, man.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've heard from our guest and our guest speaker on the stereotypical, influences, the negativity, the positivity, and the stereotype versus the reality. How really a chance some things are just a misconception, are just ideas people think about. So we'll go for a little commercial break, and when we return, all right, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome back again to After Africa on the episode of Voice of Africa. Here with me, we've got TJ and Mr. Frank. We've spoken widely on the negativity, on stereotypes, the effects and attitude it has on the young African Americans in today's society. Not just the young African Americans, it generally affects the younger generations. All right, that will bring us back. I'll come back to you again, Mr. TJ. We're still around in the corner. We're just talking about this misconceptions about stereotypes about Africa. Where let's take it in points. Let's take it in bits. Let's talk about what the media portrays, what people think, people outside of Africa what is being told. For example, they say in Africa, Africans speak Africa.
Come again. Put the question again.
The question is the belief, what people think. Those are the foreigners, those non-Africans. They have this misconception that in Africa, everyone speaks a language called African. just like in Russia.
Yeah.
Russians speak Russian.
Yeah.
So they think in Africa,
You speak.
the language, there's one language.
Mm-hmm. And it's called African.
And it's, a little light in this.
Well, to that effect, I would only have to say it can only be a great thing because it is a reflection of the recognition of some other languages in Africa besides English and besides French, besides Portuguese and all the like. But I would also say that it shouldn't be represented as Africans. It should be used. The idea should be used to appreciate the cultural diversity of the continent.
Exactly.
Okay. In Cameroon, I can speak about the country. We've got more than 130 something tribal languages.
In Nigeria, over 200.
Over 200. So I'm just giving a rough estimate,
Yep.
right? Yes, it's more than 130 something. Okay, so it can go beyond that. Maybe it's 200, but I know it's more than 130 something. I've seen it somewhere, right? And in every little ethnic group, every ethnic group is a representation of a singular culture, a singular tradition, and these traditions exist. In each community, they have a way of dressing, they have their little small language, all right, which they could use to communicate among themselves. They have their food, they have their traditional dances, they have their culture, right? And living with all this together, having all these little small, communities living together in an entire country, communicating with one language or two, as in our country, all right, French and English, it can only be a great thing. There is no African, but there are little African communities which all are a portrayal of the riches, cultural riches of the continent.
Thank you. Also, there's also a misconception of man and white animals live together in Africa.
Man
And white animals.
is that
That's
is that a metaphor?
That's a misconception. What they think that
Literally?
yeah, that animals and there's no brief conjunction. There's a close relationship between animals living in the wild and humans living really close to,
Well,
in Africa where we have the wildlife, the game reserves,
okay,
they don't.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. Well, again, it's another big misconception. It is a good thing to have animals. It is a good thing that the continent is home for one of the world's rarest species. All right, we've got the lions, we've got the giraffes, we've got the zebras, we've got the hyenas. One of the world's rarest species. You can find them in Africa. It can only be a good thing. And but no, Africans don't live with animals. It is just the same stereotype as I would say in Russia, that they say bears walk the streets with men. Yes, it's. I think I would. That's a good analogy. So it's a wrong conception. Yeah, growing up, I've seen, in real life, I haven't seen many of those animals. Yeah. So our connection with animals is yeah.
Possibly their game reserves.
Yeah, we've got game reserves,
Yeah.
many of them, and hunting used to be, a part of
Our lives.
our lives. It used to be a part of, livelihood.
Yeah.
Yeah, but these days, because of the preservation of wildlife and endangered species, there are not many hunters out there anymore. Yeah, and so I would say it's a continent where wildlife is being preserved, as we and the community are contributing. Each and every member of the community, by and large, we are contributing to the preservation of these wildlife. But it's not like we live with animals. I would say that's wrong.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. It's not like that. Mr. TJ was talking about hunting as a part of life. That would lead me to this another misconception that all Africans live in huts. I know it was a part of life. Can you clarify that?
And that's question.
Lives in huts. They believe it's all the houses are built of just huts. They're just huts.
That's point, man.
Brings us to building and infrastructure.
That one is like I would say you cannot, like, people who believe such I will call I don't have a word to explain that, because
That's it. I
seems-
can understand his feelings.
It has
Been
It's-
so publicized that
It's
way, so much so
that's very stupid. Like, I don't have a word to clarify the point, man. But it's also not it's not possible, man.
Yeah.
Like for it, so that's the kind of as I used to say at the very beginning. There's some kind of stereotype that I don't like to talk about. Mostly those who who try to portray Africa people with the bad part, with the bad on the bad side. So for that question,
Thinking about Africans living in huts, straight out, that's wrong. If I had to travel to study civil engineering, for example, there wouldn't be any need for me to travel. I would say it again, because we have civil engineers, right? Cameroon produces great civil engineers. I'm not talking because I know some civil engineering schools, but I'm saying that because I know engineers who studied in Cameroon and who are doing amazing work. My brother-in-law is one of them. He is an amazing engineer. Support construction. He's doing great and wonderful work. So the country has great institutions for training civil engineers. So we cannot have such basis on civil engineering and we're living in huts.
exactly.
How can that be? How can that be?
Thank you for
All right.
clarifying that. Thank you
I
for
don't
clarifying
really
that.
know where you got that question, man.
Yeah, it's based on the misconceptions that we've seen.
You know
Okay,
that-
there's another question I'll throw in here. Based on misconceptions and stereotypes about Africa, lack of technology, where we know that it has been derived from the common misconception that's been advanced for decades, that the continent lags behind in technological advancement, or worse, that there's no availability of technology on the continent when it comes to technology.
That is a second continent with the more use of Instagram, Facebook, and all those platforms. After America, it's come to Africa, because it's a huge growth of people are really online. They are aware of everything going around the world, because they own those devices, phones, computer, and Africa is one of the biggest market about devices for selling devices. So seeing that Africa do not have access is is so
It's an
like
exaggeration.
it's not really unstable.
I can say that we cannot even think of an area, right?
In the world, in
the world,
Africa,
in the 21st
where
century
they do not
without
have access to technology.
Exactly that. We've clarified that at least a bit.
Excuse me, but I would like use another edition to bring about owning
Of
technology,
course,
because
We need to own technology.
having access
Yes.
is not only what we need. We
Yes.
need to own our
of course,
technology.
success is
Having access,
it's a gradual process.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
a gradual
we
process.
Need, we need to control that. Our accesses do not need to be controlled.
Exactly.
That's why
That's
we
the
want you
reason
to
we-
always keep on streaming and following After Africa TV. We're going to be talking
Sure,
about a lot of these things. Right, that brings us to the final point on the misconception on all Africans are dark skinned. Do you believe this?
I would say no, not African are all that skin. You have the northern part of Africa where Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia, where people are really white skin. You have even in South Africa, you have white skin South African.
Yeah.
Of course,
Zimbabwe.
in Zimbabwe, of
in-
course,
in-
they are
in- in
they are,
pale
they are
skins,
tight minority, but Africa is not only about black skin or.
All right, there we go. Thank you so much. It's been a very interesting topic today. Thank you for coming, Mr. TJ, to the show today,
Thanks for
and
having me.
very thankful to you, Mr. Frank. Here, we've talked widely on the stereotypes, the misconceptions people have about that are being portrayed about Africa, and we've tried to discuss and see reasons on why those things are really fallacies. And dear viewers, I want to and tell you to keep on following After Africa TV, the TV for the young generation to take over, and keep on sharing, following our Instagram page, our Facebook page, our YouTube page, After Africa TV. Keep on liking and sharing. See you next time. I'll always remain your host, Michael.